So I don't know about you all, but I am realizing that when you get on social media, all I see is improvement. But that sounds like a good thing. And in some ways it is. But what I mean by that is a lot of self help, a lot of this is how you could do it better. But the one I want to talk mostly about is the health craze right now. It's something we're all facing, men, women, teenagers, parents. And honestly, if you've ever owned a mirror, this conversation is probably for you. So I want to talk about our relationship with our bodies. Now, before everybody starts drafting an angry comment halfway through this introduction, let me say something really important. This episode is not about shaming people for their weight. It's not about telling everyone they need to lose weight or telling everyone they need to gain weight. It's not about saying there's one perfect body type that everyone should strive for. Actually, I think the problem is that we've become obsessed with the wrong thing. We've become a culture that asks, do I look healthy? Do I look fit? Do I look good? Instead of asking, am I healthy? And those are two completely different things. So think about how much of our lives revolves around appearance. How many times have you walked past a mirror and immediately critiqued yourself? My stomach, my arms, my chin, my hair. I should lose 10 pounds, or maybe you're the opposite side. I wish I could gain weight. I wish I looked stronger. I wish I had more curves, or I wish I looked more like her or him. It's like nobody gets a break. And I just want to admit something here. We all have that mirror in our house. We have that one that just no matter what, we just look terrible in. Maybe you're one of the lucky few that has that one that you just go, I know if I look in that mirror, I'm just going to look fabulous today. The mirrors should honestly come with a warning label. They should say objects in mirror may appear significantly more exhausted than they actually are, especially if you're like me and you have little ones running around and life is just crazy. But this is really just where I want to dive in, because I think somewhere along the way, we stopped seeing our bodies as gifts. We stopped seeing our bodies as these amazing creations by God and seeing it for everything that it can do and everything that it's capable of. And we've started viewing it as a lifelong renovation project. There's always something to fix. There's always something to fix, something to tighten, something to shrink, something to hide. And if social media has taught us anything, it's that appearance seems to be everything. It's apparently everyone else woke up looking perfect. They have perfect skin, perfect hair, perfect smile, perfect body, perfect house, perfect marriage, perfect children. And meanwhile, I'm just over here just hoping my shirt doesn't have a mysterious toddler stain on it, because that's just the life I'm living right now. Social media has become this giant highlight reel where we compare our behind the scenes life to someone else's best edited moment. And half the people we're comparing ourselves to don't even look like the pictures they post. Filters today are wild. They don't just smooth your skin anymore. They're practically reintroducing you to a completely different person. And at this point, I'm waiting for Apple to release a filter that folds my laundry. I would pay for that. I really would. But the interesting thing is this obsession with appearance, it's not new. It changes a little bit every generation. And years ago, magazines told women they needed to be incredibly thin. Then it became you need to be thin, but you need to also have curves. Then it was now you need curves, but you also need abs. Then it was no. Now you need to look natural while someone's spending 2 hours getting ready trying to look effortless. How many videos have you seen recently of the no makeup look? Like you were trying so hard to make yourself appear natural while still being unnatural. And I think it has a lot to do with this just overwhelming pressure to present perfectly. And don't think men are off the hook either. They're told they need wide shoulders, six-pack abs, they need huge arms, and apparently they also need jawlines of a Greek god. But the standard it keeps changing. And the crazy thing is every time culture changes the standard, somebody makes a whole lot of money convincing us that we don't meet it. diet companies, beauty companies, cosmetic procedures, supplements, fitness programs. It's literally an endless cycle. And because of that, they know if they can convince you that you're always one more purchase away from finally being enough, you'll keep buying it. And I heard someone once say, if your worth depends on something that can change, you'll spend your whole life afraid of losing it. And that really stuck with me, because what happens if your identity is built on your appearance? What happens when you get older, when, after pregnancy? What happens after illness? What happens when your metabolism decides to just take a hike? It's early retirement for them. What happens when gravity starts doing what gravity always does? You can't fight time forever. If your value is rooted in your appearance, then aging is always going to feel like losing. But if your value is rooted in Christ, aging doesn't take anything away from you. And what I find something funny, because they say you're not ugly, you're just poor, because they're comparing like celebrities before they became famous, and they're perfect and perfectly presented, and they have their PR teams and it makes them look perfect. And then you compare them to like before they had all that stuff and they weren't so perfect. So it goes, I'm not ugly, I'm just poor. But I really want to think of this from the perspective of, as Christians, I think we have something incredibly freeing to offer this conversation. Genesis tells us that every single human is created in the image of God. And so when we think about that, before you ever step on a scale, before anyone has ever complimented you, before anyone has criticized you, before you ever fit into your perfect pair of clothing or stop fitting into them, your value was already established, and it was established by God. God settled that question so long ago. And your worth isn't something you earn, it's something you're already given. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about scripture, is because we try to make our worth about our appearance, about our weight, about the way we look, about what we've accomplished, our level of success in life, and we try to base our worth on that. But God's already determined our worth. And what I think we sometimes misunderstand is this: we hear your worth isn't found in your body. We accidentally start acting like our body doesn't matter at all. And that's not really biblical either. Our bodies do matter, not because they're trophies or success or status symbols, not because they're supposed to make other people admire us. They matter because they are a gift. Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians that our bodies are temples of the Holy Ghost. And I think about that image, and if someone handed you the keys to a beautiful, historic church and said, this has been entrusted to you, take good care of it, I would hope that you wouldn't trash the place. You also wouldn't spend every waking moment staring at the stained glass windows, wondering if they looked better than the church down the road. You simply take care of what has been entrusted to you. And I think that's exactly how God wants us to view our bodies, not with obsession, not with neglect, but with stewardship. Because somewhere along the way, we replaced the pursuit of health with the pursuit of appearance. We became more concerned with looking fit than actually being fit. Looking healthy instead of being healthy, or looking strong instead of being strong. And here's the truth: someone can have visible abs and be incredibly unhealthy. Someone can be very thin and have an eating disorder. Someone can spend hours a day in the gym while neglecting their mental health, their relationships, their spiritual health. And on the other hand, someone carrying extra weight may be eating better than they ever have. They could be walking every day, lowering their blood pressure, getting stronger, sleeping better, healing their relationship with food. That's health. Health is so much bigger than a number on the scale. And honestly, I think the scale has way too much power over us. Some of us step on it every morning like we're waiting for a jury duty. Please don't ruin my day. And if it says one number, it's going to be a great day. But if it says another number, suddenly we're questioning everything. We've let a little piece of plastic or metal sitting on our bathroom floor determine our whole mood. And that's a lot of responsibility for something that also can't tell the difference between muscle, water, yesterday's salty dinner, or whether you just forgot to use the bathroom before you weighed yourself. Or maybe we've been just asking the wrong question all along. Not, am I skinny enough? Not, what size jeans do I wear? Not, what does the scale say? But am I healthy? Am I caring for the body God has entrusted to me? Because at the end of the day, God isn't going to ask me what size I wore, right? He's not going to ask what the scale said, but I do believe he's called me to faithfully steward the body he's given me. And I'm going to be honest, I have failed that more times than I can count. But over this next little bit, that's what I want to explore together, not how to become thinner or how to become pretty or how to chase perfection, but how to pursue health physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, because healthy is not a clothing size. And I think we've forgotten that. So, with that in mind, I know I could spend this entire episode talking about obesity statistics or heart disease or diabetes or any of those things. But honestly, that's not what breaks my heart the most. What breaks my heart is watching 12-year-old girls hate themselves, watching teenage boys think they're failures because they don't look like a fitness influencer, or watching children, literal children, believe that they're not enough because they don't look like someone with filters, perfect lighting, and photo editing. That's the real epidemic I want to talk about. Nearly every teenager in America is on social media today, and about 95% of teens ages 13 to 17 use at least one social media platform, and roughly 1/3 say they're online almost constantly. The average teen spends around 3.5 hours a day on social media. That's not just entertainment anymore. It's an environment that they're growing up in, right? So you're talking about Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. That's just to name a few. And here's what's concerning about that. The U.S. Surgeon General has warned that adolescents who spend more than 3 hours a day on social media face about double the risk of experiencing symptoms of depression and anxiety. Nearly half of the teens also say social media makes them feel worse about their bodies. Just let that sink in. Think about that. If almost half of our teenagers are saying, this makes me feel worse about myself, why are we surprised that self-esteem is failing and failing fast? Right? Eating disorders are among the most serious mental illnesses we treat. They're not vanity. They're not attention seeking. They're real psychiatric disorders that have devastating physical and emotional consequences. National data show that about 2.7% of U.S. adolescents meet criteria for an eating disorder at some point during their teen years, with girls affected often more than boys. And that's only diagnosed disorders. So many more young people struggle with unhealthy body image, restrictive eating, binge eating, compulsive exercise without ever receiving any kind of diagnosis. Imagine being 13 years old. You're still figuring out who you are. Your body is changing. Your hormones are changing. You're trying to fit in. And then every single day, you're shown hundreds of pictures of people who seem, keyword there, seem prettier, thinner, happier, richer, more successful than you every single day. When I was younger and growing up, if someone compared themselves to a supermodel, eventually the magazine got put away. Right? Teenagers today, they carry that magazine in their pocket and it updates every 30 seconds. And I don't know about you, but middle school was hard enough without an algorithm deciding every 5 minutes that I need clear skin, bigger muscles, a flatter stomach, and a different nose. But one of the biggest lies that comparison tells us is this: if I looked like them, I'd finally be happy. But happiness has never been found in a clothing size. If it were, Hollywood would be the happiest place on earth, and we all know that that is not true. Research has consistently found that greater screen time is associated with higher levels of body dissatisfaction, eating disorder symptoms, body dysmorphia, and tying self-worth to weight among teenagers. This makes me think of Psalms 139, where he says, I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Imagine if our children believed that more than they believed Instagram. Imagine if they looked in the mirror and they saw someone handcrafted by God instead of someone who doesn't measure up. And that's the voice I want the next generation to hear. One thing about our current society is that I think social media has made people more brave in real life. And this is what I mean. We're getting bombarded every day from social media, from the internet, from all of those things about how we should appear and how we should look and how we should behave. But I am finding more and more that in the real world, in job sites and schools for teenager and middle school, high school, kids and people, I would say it's even adults, think it's perfectly okay to constantly comment on other people's bodies, on other people's anything, really, anything. And I say that because these children are saying horrible things to each other and they're critiquing each other. And it's devastating to see that we've stooped so low as a society that we think it's okay to tell people to go kill themselves, or we think it's okay to tell people nobody likes them, nobody wants to be their friend, just get out of my way, you're annoying, you're stupid, and we hear all these things, and you're fat and you're ugly. And I don't know, like, the world has always been kind of crazy in that sense, but I think we've reached a whole new level where complete strangers feel it's perfectly okay to walk up to you and critique you. They don't know you from Adam, but yet they think it's okay to just walk up and just, you look stupid, that dress looks ugly. And I know it sounds crazy because, we don't necessarily see that if we're walking into Walmart, but go into a job site, go into a school, and you'll find it fast. You will find the person that's just like, ew, get away from me. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to see you. And it's like, what did I ever do to you? I don't even know you, but yet you feel it's okay to tell me all of these horrible things about myself. If you have children in school, pray for them every single day because they are going through stuff that we didn't go through in school. We really didn't. So that was just a little extra out there. But I want to ask you a question. When was the last time you looked in the mirror and your first thought was something kind? Like, seriously, think about it. For most of us, I really don't remember the last time I looked in the mirror and was like, oh yeah, I like that. That's nice, or that's pretty. We don't look in the mirror and think, God, thank you for another day. We don't look in the mirror and think, wow, this body has carried me through another year. No, we usually become our own worst critic. We find everything wrong with ourselves. Our arms, our thighs, my nose, my acne, my stretch marks. It's like we've become experts at finding flaws. Have you ever noticed that? If I asked you to list 10 things you don't like about your appearance, most of us could probably do it in under 30 seconds. But if I asked you to list 10 things you genuinely like or appreciate about your body, we'd probably sit there in silence. But why is that? I think one reason is because we've trained ourselves to look at our bodies through the eyes of other people. We're constantly asking, what do they think when they see me? Do they think I'm attractive? Do they think I've gained weight? Do they think I look old? But can I let you in on a little secret? Most people aren't thinking about you nearly as much as you think they are. They're too busy wondering what you think about them. Isn't that funny? We're all walking around worried that everybody's judging us. Meanwhile, everybody else is just trying to survive Monday. But I remember hearing a quote that said, you'll stop worrying about what people think of you when you realize how seldom they do. And that made me laugh, but there's a lot of truth to it. Most people aren't studying your flaws because they're too busy studying their own. And then social media enters the picture. Now we're not just comparing ourselves to the people in our town. We're comparing ourselves to the entire world. Think about that. Thousands, millions of people. The prettiest, the richest, the funniest, the fittest, the most successful, the most talented. We're comparing our ordinary Tuesday to someone else's greatest, hit album. And that is exhausting. But there's something fascinating that psychologists call social comparison theory. The idea is really simple. We naturally evaluate ourselves by comparing ourselves to others. There's nothing wrong with comparison in and of itself. It actually helps us learn. Children compare themselves to classmates, athletes compare themselves to competitors, students compare test scores. Comparison can motivate growth. The problem is comparison becomes toxic when it starts to determine our worth. There's a difference between saying I'd like to get healthier and saying I'm not lovable until I get healthier, or until I look like her, until I look like him. And those are worlds apart. One inspires growth, the other destroys identity. And I'll be honest, I've been there. There have been seasons where I didn't want to be in pictures. I'll volunteer to take the picture any day, but I didn't want to be in them. Does that sound familiar? Maybe you've done the same thing, or maybe you've looked at family pictures afterwards, and instead of seeing the memories, all you can see is your double chin or your stomach or your arms. And suddenly this beautiful memory becomes overshadowed by criticism. Your children don't see what you see. When your kids look back at those pictures someday, they're not going to think, oh my God, my mom's so fat, she needs to lose 20 pounds. They're going to think, there's my mom. Oh, look, we were doing that fun thing. They're going to remember how you laughed, how you hugged them, how you showed up. So don't let insecurity rob your family of memories. I think one of Satan's greatest tricks is getting us so focused on how we look that we stop living. We say things like, I'll wear nice clothes after I lose weight. I'll take family pictures when I look better, when I've worked out more. I'll buy new clothes once I reach my goal. But life doesn't wait. Your kids keep growing, birthdays keep happening, vacations come and go, people you love grow older. So don't put your life on hold waiting for a body you may never have. Live now. But you know what's interesting? Jesus never looked at someone and said, once you fix yourself, then come follow me. He said, come. Exactly as they were, broken, messy, confused, ashamed. He loved people before they change, and his love is what transformed them. And maybe we've got that backwards. Maybe we've been trying to change ourselves so we'll finally believe we're worthy of love when God has been saying all along, you're already loved. And again, that's not permission to neglect ourselves. It's permission to stop believing that our value is something we have to earn. I kind of seem a little all over the place today. But I want to wrap up with this thought because, again, the most heartbreaking thing about appearance and how it affects us is how it's affecting our kids, right? So when we're in our 30s and, 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, you're old enough to have children. And you look in the mirror and you say, oh my God, that woman or man staring back at me is just all the things, all the wrong things. Fat, ugly, whatever it is. When you look in the mirror and you start picking apart and criticizing everything about yourself, your children, they see that. And they hear that and they start going, well, she doesn't like that about herself, or he doesn't like that about himself. Do I have that? Do I have that flaw? Maybe I have a different one, and they start looking for the things wrong in them. What about when you look in the mirror or you say those things and you're just like, oh no, my appearance is not what I think it should be. I'm not healthy. I'm too short. I'm too tall. I'm too big. I have a round face instead of a square face, or I have a square face instead of a round face, or I'm pear-shaped or whatever. Because, we come up with all of these labels for literally everything. But we say that and we're criticizing ourselves. And then somebody comes along and they tell your teenage daughter, oh my gosh, you look just like your mom. In the back of her head, all she can hear is every bad thing you said about yourself. And going, well, if I look like her, if people come to me, they meet me and they say I look like her, then they must see those same things that she sees in herself. And, we never think about that when we're standing in front of the mirror and we're critiquing everything. I'm not exactly even sure where I wanted to go fully with this episode, other than to say that social media has greatly impacted what God intended as far as our appearance, about our worth, and whether or not it rests on our appearance. But more than anything, we are running into a society where our children are being torn down before they even fully know how to read. And it breaks my heart. There are 4 and 5-year-olds that are looking in the mirror and complaining about the way they look and going, oh, I don't like myself. And that is absolutely heartbreaking to me, not just as a person, not just as a mom, but just in general, to see a child look at themselves and have such hate for themselves is absolutely heartbreaking. And this goes beyond just appearance. There are so many scenarios in where children are struggling to just accept themselves and love themselves. And I hate that we live in a society that promotes that constant self-destruction, that constant comparison, that constant need to strive for perfection that you're never going to reach, instead of just being proud of who you are and what you're becoming and everything in between. So look around you in the coming weeks. Look in the mirror. Find some kind things to say to yourself. Start there. But look around you at the children that are in your life and ask yourself, am I doing anything or saying anything that is going to, even about yourself, that is going to make them feel badly about themselves? But also, reach out to some children that may be struggling. You never know. You really never know if they're smiling every day and happy and fun, but they're looking in the mirror alone and critiquing and criticizing themselves. And one last thing before I go, be careful with your jokes. I know they sound funny and the person you're telling them to may even laugh, but then they go home and go, that was kind of funny, but now I'm starting to wonder if that's really what they think of me. So here's just a little bit on body positivity and taking care of yourself, loving yourself. I know it's a wild one. It's kind of out of the blue, but take it with you. If you know somebody that needs to hear this or needs to be reminded that they don't have to earn their worth, they are worthy of God's love just as they are, send this to them. It'll do them good. With that in mind, until next time, take care of your mind, take care of your soul, and take care of yourself.